What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, February 5th, 2020, middle of the weekday, hump day, starting that long, slow glide down to Pauhana Friday and another crazy weekend. And we've got lots to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and observations. Now, down in Iowa, and by the way, before we get into that, we are waiting on the final vote on this impeachment nonsense. And there we go. We're waiting on this final vote for this impeachment nonsense. It should be, we're keeping an eye on it. We'll let you know how it's going to go. But at this point, it's a foregone conclusion that Trump will be acquitted, and the Democrats are already out there screaming, cover up this and that. Anyway, with 75% of the Iowa precincts reporting, Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders are now tied with 11 delegates each. So it's Buttigieg being obviously the big surprise here, along, of course, with Joe Biden, who came in with 0 delegates, and he's in 4th place. He's even behind Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. And I think that may be an indicator that, you know, Joe Biden was very close to this impeachment process. And I think the Democrats have really harmed themselves with this nonsense here. Over at the New York Times, they've managed to blame Trump for the Iowa caucus debacle rather than the Democrats. And while it's obviously an attempt to harm Donald Trump, in a way, the New York Times is correct, because Trump came into office promising to overhaul our election system to guarantee fair, honest, and accurate elections. And he didn't do it. He dropped the ball, turned it on over to Department of Homeland Security. And obviously, based on what we're seeing so far this election season, Department of Homeland Security hasn't done anything about the problem. It's still out there. Now, because of the chaos and the delay, everybody who did not win in Iowa is already screaming, oh, there's vote fraud, there's election fraud. It was, you know, it's unreliable. It was all rigged. Lindsey Graham is out there saying it's rigged. Joe Biden's camp is out there saying that the whole thing was rigged. And it's a joke. Our election system is a joke, and the rest of the world is laughing at us. Now, a lot of attention is being focused on this app that was supposed to deliver the vote totals from the remote parts of Iowa to the central tabulation center. And apparently the company that was given the contract for this app was started just 5 months ago. And the CEO of the company was Hillary Clinton's director of product for her 2016 presidential campaign, and they are openly supportive of Buttigieg. So something to think about there. And here's the part that you need to think about. There are commercial off-the-shelf applications that would have worked just fine to communicate these simple numbers from one place to another, secure, encrypted, and one wonders why they didn't simply go with that. So anyway, meanwhile, over at Judicial Watch, they are finding potential Iowa voter fraud. At least 5 counties have more people on the voter rolls than actually live there. That's a dead giveaway that something funny was going on here. Apparently, Las Vegas had their caucus, and apparently it too descended into utter chaos. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. All right, well, last night was the State of the Union speech. A lot of people saying it's one of the best State of the Union speeches in recent memory. And Trump got out there, and you could kind of tell that he was in his element, that he almost reverted back to being a reality TV host, but he did it very effectively. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi went out of her way to express her disgust for Donald Trump. She was mumbling to herself during the speech, rearranging her dentures, rolling her eyes when Trump was out there listing the accomplishments of his administration. And there were 2 viral moments there. The first of all is when Trump was handing copies of the speech to the vice president and the Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi reached out to shake his hand, and Trump ignored her. But the real one that has caught the eye of the media pretty much around the world is at the end of Trump's speech, Nancy Pelosi ripped up her copy of the speech and just tossed it away. And she's come under some serious criticism for that. She's tried to justify it, saying that she wanted to do something else but didn't think it was appropriate. But still, it was a slap in the face, and the White House has issued a statement saying, yes, it was a slap in the face. Now, during his speech, Trump unloaded on the Democrats for wanting a socialist takeover of America and reiterated he is not going to allow socialism to come to this country because, after all, if you want to see socialism at work, take a look at Cuba. Now, as I said before, Trump kind of surprised everybody with some made-for-TV moments. This is a first in the State of the Union speeches. Up until now, the State of the Union has always been a listing of what has already been done. Nothing happens during the speech itself. This time was different. In one case, a young lady who wanted to choose her own school was just announced right there in the speech that she got an opportunity scholarship to go to the school of her choice. He honored one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen, but probably the biggest moment of all was when he introduced and honored Rush Limbaugh, who, as you know, is battling stage 4 lung cancer, and awarded him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom right there on the spot, pinned on him by the First Lady Melania. And this is the first time the Medal of Freedom has been awarded at a location other than the White House. And you could see it on Rush's face. He absolutely was not expecting this, and he was stunned. I mean, thinking about Rush Limbaugh at being the mouth that always pours, he looked absolutely speechless to me. And, you know, good for him. Good for him. Now, as I said before, I don't agree with everything that Rush Limbaugh says. He and I kind of locked horns over the Vince Foster case many, many years ago. But, you know, I have seen cancer up close and personal. I've seen the cancer treatments and the harm they cause up close and personal. And so I am really hoping that he beats this thing. I am hoping that the treatment goes very well and, most importantly, very rapidly. And I hope he gets back to being on the microphone very, very quickly. Now, speaking of getting on the microphone very, very quickly, as a little side note, the indications are around here. I will be returning to my domicile and my home studio next Tuesday. You know, all the various doctors and everybody are coming around and doing final checks and everything to make sure it's okay to let me out on society again. But it looks like it's going to be next Tuesday. Meanwhile, getting on back to Rush Limbaugh, have you seen the disgusting way that liberals have just piled on and said, well, good, go cancer, just take him out. We don't want him around anymore. I thought the Democrats were supposed to be the party of compassion. But I'm sure as heck not seeing it. In fact, it's absolutely shameful the way they're almost gleeful that Rush Limbaugh has cancer. They think it's a good thing. Somebody else over here, and let's see, this is in the Paul Craig Roberts, saying, as the Democratic Party hates Trump deplorables, how can they represent white people? That's a very, very good question. And we have seen over the last, well, since 2016, how the Democratic Party is trying to build a base among the blacks, the Hispanics, the gays, transgenders, and they're scapegoating and victimizing straight white people. And so, no, they don't represent white people, and white people get out there and vote. So this may be another classic case of hoisting with their own petard. Democrats are a party without any real ideas. All right, we're going to take a phone call here. Chance in West Virginia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, hello, Michael. I trust you're feeling better after yesterday, correct?
Yeah, well, I'm feeling better now that all this stuff is getting over and done with.
Yeah, I hear you. You mentioned Rush Limbaugh. I know exactly what he's going through because I've been through the exact same ailment myself. And I wish him, even though I'm not a big fan of his, I hope the best for him. Those vile, wicked creatures on the left, it just goes to show you what wicked people they are. I wouldn't wish what I had or what he has on my enemy, and that's the truth. And I think you mentioned you saw your mother with the same ailment at one time, I believe.
Back to the show here, and we've lost our internet out here in Indiana. So I'm on the cell phone right now, and we're going to go to Steve Elkins on the phone. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Well, I watched yesterday's State of the Union address also, and there were some highlights. There were some low points. One of them I was very surprised in seeing. I was very disappointed with seeing the interim coup president for Venezuela there, Guaido. That
yes.
I found that rather disturbing because, they're continuing on that pathway of saying that Nicolas Maduro is a evil, ruthless dictator who taxes people and all these other nonsense things. I was very disappointed that he was there. I think when it came down to the tearing up, I'm amazed that she tore up the itinerary there of the State of the Union address, but it didn't surprise me. But the handshake itself, saying that she got dissed and he refused to shake her hand, if you watch that closely, he'd already turned. He did not shake Mike Pence's hand, and he simply turned his body already. He'd already made the turn. Unless you have great periphery, she put her hand out late. I believe she set that scenario up to make him look bad, that he wouldn't shake my hand. I think she set that up to make him look bad. But and I wondered also about her actions there. Either the dentures were slipping or she had a stroke. To the right side of her face, her mouth had a funny shape. I'm thinking to my wife, she's a nurse also. I said, she either stroked or her dentures have slipped, one or the other. But overall, like I said, when it came down to, and the 450 miles of wall that is going to be built by the end of 2020, I'm sorry that's not going to happen. I wish it would, but the funding isn't there, and he's going to get fought all the way to doing that anyway. He shouldn't, but he will. So 450 more miles is due, I guess, to complete the project by end of 2020. Don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree, and it was a great speech, and that's what Trump is really best at. But not to give the Democrats too much due, but Trump has not actually accomplished as much, certainly in terms of the things he campaigned on back in 2016. Agreed.
I agreed. Glad you're back, Mike. Take care now.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here, and let's see. I'm trying to get our net connection back while I'm talking here. So anyway, like I said, all right, here we go. All right, Nancy Pelosi has now signed off on a subpoena for Bolton over in the House Judiciary Committee. And Nadler says the committee will issue the subpoena very soon. What they're getting ready to do is they're getting ready to basically have Bolton come on in, repeat the allegations made in his book, and then launch yet another impeachment inquiry based on those accusations. So they're absolutely right. They're going to keep on coming up with new reasons to try and impeach the president and keep it going all through this election cycle. I really think people are suffering from impeachment fatigue and that they are really tired of this. So let's see. Okay, and it looks like we are back on the regular link up.
So I'm going to hang up the phone. And we're coming up on a commercial break here, but it looks like you can hear me, right, Mike? All right. Yeah, Chance, come on back here and finish up and tell us what you were saying.
Yes, hello, Michael. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine now.
Yes. When I think back the sheer torment I've been through with that disease, and to hear people gleefully make those remarks about somebody, even if they don't like them, makes me sick. It just goes to show you the black hole these people have in their hearts. Michael, I'm sure have you heard about these Bernie Sanders campaign organizers threatening to burn cities and threaten violence if he doesn't get the party's nomination?
Okay, well, listen, I need to put you on hold because we got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're still talking with Chance in West Virginia. And, you know, maybe I'm sensitive to this issue about this liberal encouraging the cancer to eat Rush Limbaugh, because I'm calling from a medical facility myself, although, as I said, I'm getting out next Tuesday. But I guess you have to have been there. Okay, apparently the Senate has now acquitted the president of abuse of power. So that's one of the two articles of impeachment. All right, so there we are. Anyway, Chance, please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, you can imagine how sensitive I am to it, because I've been through it myself, and it makes me sick, these vile creatures saying things like that. I mentioned, Michael, about Bernie Sanders. Have you heard about his campaign organizers threatening to burn cities and start violence if he's not nominated as president?
Well, I mean, anybody can claim to be a Bernie Sanders supporter, and to be very honest, this feels almost Nixonian in terms of trying to make Bernie Sanders look bad. I question whether they're really Bernie Sanders supporters or whether they're just, you know, a con job. Get up there and say, I support Bernie Sanders and I'm going to drop elephants on kindergarten buildings if he's not elected. It doesn't feel like legitimate Bernie Sanders supporters.
Well, you know, it's either that or they learned that Antifa can get away with what they're doing, so why not them? That could be too. I have a couple of quotes, Michael, if I may tell you them.
Go
These
for
are
it.
ones you don't hear. Okay. This is by Frank Zappa, the musician. I'm sure you remember him.
Oh, yeah.
The illusion of freedom in America will continue as long as it's profitable to continue the illusion. At the point where the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they will just take down the scenery. They will pull back the curtains. They will move the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theater. That's one.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yep, and here's one also by Pravda, and this was in 2009. The proud American will go down into his slavery without a fight, beating his chest and proclaiming to the world how free he really is. The world will only snicker. And I have one or two more, if you don't mind. That's okay with you, Michael.
Certainly.
Okay. This is by Friedrich Nietzsche. I love the valiant, but it is not enough to wield a broadsword. One must also know against whom. And here's one more by Marcus Cicero. He who knows only his own generation, one without knowledge of history, remains forever a child. And I'll leave you with one more, if that's okay. This is by Hunter S. Thompson. Not that I'm a big fan of his, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. The truth, when you finally chase it down, is almost always far worse than your darkest visions and fears. I think that sums up what we're going through in these wicked times nowadays, if people do a little research. Michael, I thank you for your time, and take care of yourself now.
I certainly will. Thank you very much for those quotes. They're all very, very good ones. And I remember most of them, if not all of them. Certainly the one by Frank Zappa and the one by Hunter S. Thompson. All righty, so getting on back, the Senate is now voting on the final article of impeachment. And as I said, this is a study in foregone conclusions. We already know how this is going to turn out, and the Democrats are definitely fuming about it. Now, Adam Schiff, who is now basically looking like a liar for the last 2 years, between Russiagate and Pissgate and all the rest of those things. Now he's out there. He actually said this, that if Trump is not removed from office, he could trade Alaska to Russia in exchange for election help. I mean, that is really a reach. That is really, really a reach. And but he came on out and he actually said that. They're losing touch with reality, I think. I mean, Adam can't really think that the majority of American people are going to believe that. I mean, Trump, first of all, let's look at the practical side. Trump can't give away Alaska. He can't sell Alaska. He can't do anything with Alaska without the permission of Congress. It took an act of Congress to buy Alaska, and it will take an act of Congress to sell Alaska. And they're not going to let Alaska go because of all the oil that's up there. That's just the way it is. All right, so we're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443.
Okay, well, it seems like our internet out here in this part of Indiana is definitely not doing very well. Actually, no, the internet is up. It appears to be our link to RBN as... All right, let me try and restart the Verto, and let's see. Sorry about all these technical issues. So I'm going to try and log back in and see if we can reconnect. And it looks like, hello, can you hear me? All right, here we go. Oh my goodness, the wonders of technology. All righty, so let's see where we were. We had some callers on the air. I think the first, Miles from Maine. Aloha, Miles, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, great to hear you. And aloha, Michael. And that's going to be one heck of a show to get you back in your studio. That'll be a real celebration for all of us.
Yes, I'm trying to find someplace where I can find a party hat that will fit underneath the headset.
Well, anyway, Michael, you know, I was just wondering, you know, you hear these Sanders people, and like you said, they may or may not be, but you hear these people, and they're always going to go attack something, and they're going to do this. Why don't they go have their riot at Wasserman Schultz or the DNC headquarters or some? Take their riot and their protest and whatever they're going to do, you know, assault or beat whoever they're going to do up over there. You know, why do they bring it to the entire, you know, United States of America? Just keep it within themselves. We don't need to hear it. We don't need them. We don't need any of that.
Well, I think it's a fake. I think these people are not actually Sanders supporters. I think they're working for one of the other candidates. And, you know, again, go back and study all the president's men, and you'll see exactly how these things get done.
Well, it sounds just like a typical Hillary stunt. But and then, you know, remember also the last election cycle in 2016 when they beat up Sanders, and he got beat up till he finally capitulated more or less. I don't know if they ever caught who beat him up or whatever happened, but when I saw it, he was bandaged up and he was telling his story, you know. Did anything ever come about that?
No, they never caught the people who did it.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy. And then the other thing, Michael, I was going to say, you know, with this Pelosi and all this crazy stuff and Schiff and all these straight out and out lies, I mean, not only should they be thrown out, but at the very minimum, can't they at least get censored there in that Congress, or what's going on, or do you know how that goes, or what the qualifications are to get them censored from this kind of activity?
I think you mean censured, and certainly the Congress has the right to do that. They also have the right to eject them with a majority vote.
Well, why don't they start bringing some of these Democrats up? You know, I think they need to come out here.
I think
and show
they
that
ought to. I don't know. I don't know why they aren't. You know, they may be afraid that the Democrats will scream, "Oh, this is just petty retaliation." But now that the Trump has been acquitted, I would like to see some of this stuff start to happen, because if they're calling Bolton back before the House Judiciary Committee, then they're getting ready to try this all over again.
Well, then, you know, and I agree with you. And if Bolton comes, remember they told him that his stuff that he had in his book, or many of his commentaries in his book, weren't they classified information?
Supposedly, some of the material is classified. That's according to the White House, which raises the question of how the book got published in the first place. But mostly, you know, the part that affects Donald Trump is stuff that is it's allegations only. Frankly, I think the White House erred in threatening Bolton not to publish, because it makes it look like Trump has got something to hide. And I think the better course of action would have been, let Bolton publish. Don't make a big fuss about it. Nobody's going to buy his book anyway, unless you make an issue of it.
Well, you know, I was thinking kind of like that too myself, Michael. But you know what it sounds to me? I feel like this, that I think Bolton has something to hide by trying to write this book. That's how I looked at it.
He's just out for revenge. I mean, he started writing this book, I mean, pretty much the day that he was fired. And so this is his gotcha, his payback, his revenge on Trump.
Well,
and
I understand
there's nothing
that,
to support his
Trump,
allegations.
Yeah, I understand that, but the reason I say that is, remember, Trump made the point. He said, and emphatically, he said, if I listened to Bolton, we'd be in World War VI. Maybe Trump has some information that he could share about that might make Bolton look very bad.
Well, I would agree. That's what we'd like to see out there. And yeah, Bolton is a war hawk going way, way back. He was a war hawk under George W. Bush, and he's a war hawk today.
Well, Michael, thanks for your time, and we'll be looking forward to getting you back in your home studio Tuesday.
Well, I'll definitely be, you know, doing the banners and the hat and confetti and all the rest of that stuff here. So
well,
we're going to let you go.
Anyway. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you,
definitely
Michael.
be a lot more comfortable. Okay. Yeah, this chair they've got me in here is most uncomfortable. All right, we're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Dustin, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Trump should have invited Putin to the State of the Union.
Yeah.
Would have been the greatest thing.
that would have been wonderful. That would have been.
Oh my God.
That would have been priceless.
What
See all the
do you make
Democrats'
of
heads
Guaido?
explode.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, Mike, was that Steve Elkins that called earlier, I believe, right? I think he
Yes.
got it wrong. It wasn't 400 and something miles. It's 400 and something feet. Well, border wall. It's never going to happen. Come on. You know, Mike, every State of the Union from Obama, the Bushes, it's all bogus. What are they going to come out and say? The State of the Union is crap? They're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. They're going to portray everything as rosy, you know? Because if it was, you know, Trump should have said, you know, we're pumping trillions of dollars into the repo market to prop the banks up. Can you imagine if he came out and said that? The stock market would be down.
The State of the Union is a sales pitch. That's all it really is. It's a sales pitch. And Trump turned it into a reality show, and he did it very well.
But man, with Guaido there, oh my God! I mean, that is a reality show. You know, that
Yeah.
dude's never getting. Yeah, Mike, that helps Maduro though. All he has to do is take that video and post it all over Venezuela. You know, here's the puppet Guaido. All his Guaido's people are going to have to go into hiding. You know, like, so that actually helps Maduro.
I think you may be right.
Well, yeah, because if he's in, like, Guaido is in the belly of the beast. You know, that's who's propping him up, the empire. That you use, you know, against Guaido. So having him there helps Maduro, as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, it's bizarre, man. I mean, this whole with with Nancy Pelosi tearing up Mike, we are truly living in Rome. Like, this is the decadence. You had the Super Bowl with the touching of their butts, and it's just like a decadence that continues. Man, how much longer can this thing go on? It's like Gene Wilder. You know, the excitement is killing me. I hope for more. I can't wait for more, or something like that. Yeah, you know, it's a bizarre thing going on. You know, it's like, and I keep saying it, Mike, it's a show. Because if you saw Lindsey Graham on Twitter, did you see him come out and say, I appreciate Nancy Pelosi's, like, for what she's done for this? I'm like, come on. You know, I mean, they all look like they hate each other, but they all go to the gentlemen's and the ladies' club in the nighttime. You know what I mean? It's a show during the day. They all go out to dinner at night. They all go to the same, hang out with the same group, you know, of lobbyists, right? They all go to the same parties. You know, they all go hang out with Harvey Weinstein, right? They all hang out with the same group of people. So people need to really stop thinking, oh, the Democrats when are they something good? They're never getting arrested. I mean, I just don't understand how people keep coming up with this thing where there's going to be either indictment or arrest or this or that. It's never going to happen.
But it's so much fun to dream about.
Yeah, well, the empire doesn't arrest its own people. That's doing the work for the empire. They might dispose of people.
Well, I mean, there's always the Julius Caesar, you know, method, which is where they just all of a sudden turn around and stab somebody to death.
But like, even with like Bernie Sanders, like, I mean, the guy is part of the establishment. Maybe not like Trump. He's not part of the establishment, but he has people who are the establishment with him, you know? And like with Bernie Sanders, it'd be the same way, right? Like, who's he going to get outside of Washington, D.C.? You know, like nobody. He'd have to pull in people from the Beltway, per se. You know, so his sheets ain't clean either. You know, none of these people are. You know, that's why I keep saying it when I call in, I don't see things changing. I just see things getting worse because it's just a rotted cesspool. And, you know, back to what happened to draining the swamp. Yeah, and you know, Mike, it's funny, draining the swamp, right? And I want to leave you with this, is how come nothing's ever been done with all this censorship YouTube's been doing and all that, and Facebook, and Trump hasn't done one thing to correct that, okay? And that's more important than anything because that's your freedom of speech. When you get one-sided...
I was going to say, you know, it feels like Trump has abandoned those who supported him in the 2016 election. And that includes the independent media and social media, alternative media. And he's sort of forgotten about us and turned his back on us. And I think it's definitely going to cost him this year. I still think he's likely to win. But you know, a lot of people who supported Trump in 2016, they're not going to be as enthusiastic about putting in the long hours that we did back then. Now, supposedly Zuckerberg is pulling Facebook back away from the censorship because it's cost them way too many of their readers and users, and it's affecting the ad revenues. So we may be seeing a pushback on all of that.
Unless you're Rush Limbaugh and get the Medal of Freedom. Because Rush Limbaugh, hate to break it to people, he's part of the establishment too, just like Sean Hannity. You know, Tucker is part of the establishment, but he's not all the way, but he's still in that beltway. You know what I mean? So that's why, like, if Tucker ever left, he'd probably go to CNN or MS. They all have this revolving door. If you ever see people who used to be on Fox News or on CNN, ABC, NBC, so they go all around in a circle and then come back around. You know, I mean, it's not hard to figure out because you see those same faces on different stations pushing the same crap. You know, that's very easy to figure out. But Mike, have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Chris in Vegas. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you so very, very much, Michael, and I'm certainly glad to hear that you're doing better. On the Bolton book, I think that's more accurately the Bolton Manifesto, or Beasto, as the case may be, and this is his version because it puts the handprints on it that testify he was deeply involved, if not maybe a perpetrator, of the Steele dossier or dossier, as they call it.
Okay.
Well, when you've got a guy as deep up to his neck in this sedition and treason, undermining the government of the United States and conspiring with our best friends to destroy this country, it becomes very complex because he is obviously a deep state operative of the highest order, has been there for years as neocon jihadi John Bolton, has been perpetrating wars against people that we want to take away their resources and convert them to our so-called version of demonocracy here in America, so we can rob, rape, pollute, plunder, and steal all their resources out of their countries and put in our own puppet dictators to rule over them, so they will have to take on the Federal Reserve's so-called usurious debt notes that have been used to pillage the people of America for years and other countries on the planet.
Well, it's not necessarily the Federal Reserve, but definitely it's the imposition of private central banking.
Well, absolutely. There's nothing federal and nothing in reserve whatsoever. They're about as Federal Express, and the only thing they have in reserve is revenue, where they move it from our pockets to their pockets to line their own greed-lined lust for insatiable wealth.
Plus, they have a license to counterfeit the currency, which they're doing right now. They're trying to monetize the debt.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to create debt until it's already unpayable. There's no way. We need to have a jubilee of forgiveness of debt. I hear the music.
I absolutely agree with you. Yes, there's the music. Chris, thank you for the phone call. We're going to have to let you go, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Lance in Toronto. Aloha, Lance. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I guess I'm a long-time listener and a first-time caller, and I was grateful to discover you years ago. Before I sort of discovered your show, I was listening to Alex Jones, and years before that, and realizing Alex was sort of maybe spun towards the Zionist ways, or let's say corrupted, or I don't know. He wasn't the voice of the people, that's for sure. And I'm just here to say that I'm just grateful to discover you, Mike, and so proud of your show and everything you're doing with your show, and just love all the contribution you get from all the people that call in and contribute ideas and their concepts. I think it's a great forum that you've set up here, Mike. I'm very proud of what you've done and very grateful that I've discovered you. That's all.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. And, there's actually a YouTube video of Alex Jones out there where he, basically pledges his undying support for Israel. And so there's no question that there's a certain handshake arrangement going on with there. But I just call them as I see them, and I'm going to continue doing that just as long as I possibly can.
Well, I'm just saying fantastic, fantastic stuff there, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to let you go here. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And getting on back to the news here. You got it. All right. Hillary is out there again saying that she feels the urge to run against Trump. She's still out there probing and testing. At this point, especially with Biden having come in fourth in Iowa with 0 delegates, it's going to go to a brokered convention. No one Democratic candidate is going to have enough delegates for a first vote victory. And so after that, the dealing and wheeling starts, And at that point, I'm expecting Hillary's going to come on in to proclaim herself the savior of the Democratic Party, the only candidate who could possibly defeat Donald Trump. I hope I'm wrong. I absolutely hope I'm wrong. But she is clearly working to position herself to make that run. She's got her cronies on the Rules Committee at the Democratic National Committee, as was the case in 2016. She's certainly working to keep herself in the eye of the public. Oh, anyway, getting over to the international news here, a lot of people are still talking about this deal of the century, Trump's peace deal. And Stuart Littlewood came on out and said, remember, intimidating or coercing a civilian population is defined as terrorism under the USA Patriot Act. And that's exactly what Trump's peace deal is doing. It's the very model of a vile terror document. Now, remember, all that the document says is that Israel promises they won't start any new settlements, while Palestine has to wait to negotiate a Palestinian state for some years down the road. It was a raw deal from beginning to end. I'm not surprised the Palestinians have turned it down, because they're not dumb. Anyway, we got to take a break for station identification. Back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. All right, let's talk about the economic news for a while. And apparently the Dow continues to be a bit of a roller coaster. It was really up yesterday, not so much today. And Craig Hemke is making a comment out there similar to what I said earlier in the show. The Federal Reserve is trying to monetize the debt, and now they're trapped. They cannot stop money printing, which is going to put more inflationary pressure on the dollar. And unless they can find a cash sink someplace, we're going to start seeing prices go up yet again as we edge closer to recession. Okay, we're going to take another phone call. Terry in California. Aloha, Terry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, just a quick question about impeachment. They say it's defined as high crimes or misdemeanors is when they can bring charges against the president for impeachment. Do they define what high crimes are? There
really is no legal definition of what crosses that line into a high crime. It's a very subjective situation. And I would expect that, if a president did something really yucky, that everybody would say, oh, yeah, that's definitely above the line. But in this case, the call that he made to Ukraine, it may have been inappropriate, but I don't think anybody agreed it was a high crime. In fact, quid pro quos are common in politics, especially in foreign policy.
Right. And then they say, and misdemeanors, right?
Yes.
So is that and misdemeanors, high crime and a misdemeanor, or high crime or a misdemeanor?
I would say
the
intention was or. The intention was or.
Okay, well, so a speeding ticket's a misdemeanor, right?
Yeah, but is it a high misdemeanor? I think the word high was meant...
Well, they say high crimes are misdemeanors, which the high stays with the crimes.
Well,
I don't know. I just like to get a reading on it.
Well,
I would think
they use the word and, high crimes and misdemeanors. So in that case, the high is applied to the misdemeanors as well.
Okay, so that means
the point is, Terry, is a speeding ticket a high misdemeanor?
No, it's a low misdemeanor. But
well, there you go.
I thought they separated it, but I guess not. And they say high crimes, and you say it's not and, it's or misdemeanors. If it was and misdemeanors, they'd have to have the high crime and a misdemeanor. But I guess it's or misdemeanors.
Well, if you look at the way the Declaration of the Constitution are written, they did make a few grammatical mistakes. So let's cut the Founding Fathers some slack. Anyway, listen, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go and get on back here to the news here. We're talking about the economic news. And apparently there's this Harvard-trained economist who was saying that the Federal Reserve cannot taper the money printing without the financial system blowing up. So they're trapped. They've painted themselves into a heck of a corner. Oh, my goodness. Now, for all those kids out there who are wondering what they're going to do with their lives, and they don't want to go to college because they don't want to get trapped by the student loan debt, and they're looking possibly at a trade rather than a profession. Apparently, there is a shortage of welders in this country. And according to this article that came out of Government Slaves, there's a shortage of 400,000 welders predicted over the next 4 years. Well, welding is an easy skill to learn, and it does pay very well. There's very often a union is involved. So you might want to think about picking that up. Welding is a skill that you can have, and not to the exclusion of anything else. And as a matter of fact, you'd be amazed how many people on film sets know how to weld because it comes in handy so much. All right, as you're already aware from all the commercials, from all the tax preparation services, it's tax time, it's tax time. Sir Guy of Gisborne's men are riding rampant across the countryside, stealing the pigs and chickens and the farmers' daughters here. And a reminder, if you get a phone call, a text message, or email claiming to be from the Internal Revenue Service, it's a scam. The IRS does everything by postal mail. Scammers are out there. The scammers are really, really out there. All right, adding to our woes in terms of both illegal immigration and the election system, Illinois is giving driver's licenses to illegals and signing them up for voter registration at the same time. It's a motor voter state. So there are voter registrations for all these illegal immigrants. They shouldn't exist, these registrations, but they're there. And if the illegals do not go on out and vote, and they will vote liberal because the liberals are offering to give them stuff, you know, we're going to take away the wealth from the legal American citizens, and we're going to give it to you, you loyal Democratic voters. Bread and circuses first. And even if the illegal doesn't actually vote, that registration is there to be played with. Our election system is so crooked, you got to screw those ballots into the ballot box. All right, we have been talking about the issue of police brutality, and apparently police are actually being taught a tactic called a zipper killing, which is where they will start shooting at your pelvis and then walk the bullets up until your head. And that's hence the zipper. And apparently, the instructor's use of words pelvic girdle and brain housing. And it's designed to make it easier for cops to justify using their weapons like a zipper on a human being. Don't you miss the good old days when the motto of the police was to protect and to serve? Now it's we treat you like a king, Rodney King. Okay, lawyers for the family of British teenager Harry Dunn and the lawyers for Jeffrey Epstein's sex slaves have joined forces to demand Britain swap Prince Andrew for a British spy wanted over the death crash. And what this is they want Prince Andrew rather, to come to the United States for depositions. And in exchange, the U.S. spy's wife, Anna Sekulas, would go to Great Britain where she's accused of killing Harry Dunn. See if that's actually going to happen or not. All right, this was a story, and I saw it when it first came on out. There was this surgeon and his wife, girlfriend, that were accused of drugging and raping up to 1,000 women. It was a sensational story. It made all the tabloids and everything. And apparently a California prosecutor is now dropping all charges against the surgeon and his girlfriend, saying that this was all made up by his predecessor, there was one person came on in and said, I think this has been going on. And the predecessor said, wow, this is a case that could get my name in the newspapers. I could be famous, and just lured it up. And so now that has been corrected. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Kenny in Florida. Aloha, Kenny. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, how you doing?
Doing okay?
That's good. I'm glad. I was glad to have you back. I never got to send you an email to say you hope everything's okay, but I'm glad you're doing okay. Had some people praying for you and all that. So I know I don't call in a lot, but I listen. I listen just about every day. You're like my main source of news, so I'm really glad to have you back.
Well, thank you.
And then
glad to be back.
Yeah. You're welcome. I'm sure you are, and I'm glad you'll be going home soon. You got two things to celebrate when you go home. Yeah. Finally going home and acquittal. And also, speaking of the impeachment, you were given the numbers, and then you were cut off. I heard like not guilty 53, and then you went silent. That's when you got disconnected, and then I never heard the numbers when you came back. I already looked them up, but you might want to give the numbers again for anyone who might have missed it.
Well, it was not guilty 53, guilty 47. Remember, there's 100 votes in the Senate, broken down pretty much along party lines. This was a partisan exercise. And with a requirement of a 2/3 vote to remove the president, the Democrats did not even come close.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. And also, I think somebody mentioned somebody beating up on Bernie Sanders, and he capitulated. I'm wondering if he was referring to the time that Black Lives Matter took over his rally, and he decided to just give them the mic, and they just kept going on and on. They tried to have like 4 minutes of silence or whatever, and nobody was in it, and then it just totally ruined his rally. I'm wondering if he was referring to that, because I remember I saw that.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't. There was a moment during the actual Democratic convention where Bernie Sanders was caught on camera, obviously having been beaten in the face, with bruises and all the rest of it. And so, yeah, a lot of people were thinking it was at that point that he kind of started backing off his challenge against Hillary. And then, of course, as soon as the convention was over, Sanders bought himself a third home, little vacation cabin on a lake, as I understand it. So, yeah, it's a dirty business. There's no question about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that event at Israel might have happened after he got beaten up. But yeah, I just wanted some clarification on that, and that's all I had. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks an awful lot. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Getting on back to police malfeasance. Back last summer, Georgia Southern quarterback Shai Wertz was arrested by a police officer and charged with possession of cocaine because of a mysterious white substance found on the hood of his car. The substance turned out to be bird poop and not the drug. And the police officer who arrested this guy has now resigned. I mean, can't tell the difference between cocaine and bird poop. Where are they getting these people? That's what I want to know. Okay, getting on back to Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, back in 2014, Epstein opened a dormant bank account that's been inactive, and all of a sudden, millions of dollars have been sent from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein to this dormant bank account. And the judge who's overseeing a court case over the remaining assets is starting to say, what the heck happened? Who ordered this transfer? Where is the money going? And it's another indicator that Epstein is probably actually still alive. And I was thinking about this the other day. And remember when Epstein supposedly committed suicide, and they had a photo of him being wheeled out on a gurney with his face exposed, which is not normally how they treat dead people. Normally they're covered from head to toe. And I remember there was his face, but his jaw was shut. Now, when people are dead, the jaw tends to fall open from gravity. That's why in the days before modern funeral methods, they would actually tie a cloth around the head, under the jaw, up over the top of the head, and tie it to hold the mouth closed to make the person look more normal. and that wasn't necessary in this particular case. I think Epstein is still alive somewhere. Getting on over to Harvey Weinstein, he's going through this trial in the New York court system, being tried for rape. And for some reason, the jury was shown naked photographs of Weinstein. I just get the willies thinking about, what are you thinking? I would vote against the lawyer who did that, regardless of whether I thought somebody was guilty or innocent. I mean, what a horrible, horrible thing to do. Okay, Virginia is getting ready to pass a bill that would allow the state to vaccinate children without parental consent. First, it was the gun control that went out of control. Now it's vaccine policy. And the police state of Virginia is trying to manipulate this so that minors can choose to get vaccinated or even obtain birth control without the knowledge or consent of their parents. This is Senate Bill 104, introduced by the Virginia Democrats, of course, would basically treat children as adults for the purpose of consenting to birth control, vaccines, and medical or health issues required in case of pregnancy or family planning, except for the purposes of sexual sterilization. Oh boy, more and more parents are being cut out of the equation. And certainly that's the hallmark of dictatorships and police states. We saw that in Nazi Germany, where the children were basically adopted by the state, indoctrinated by the state. Got so bad that children were even spying on their own parents on behalf of the Nazi state. And I expect we're going to start seeing that here very, very soon. In fact, we already are. Apparently, there have been cases where school officials are asking children what kind of guns their parents have. So, anyway, now MIT has come up with a system in which your permanent vaccine record would be embedded in your skin. Now, I've often heard about this so-called permanent medical record, and I've often wondered, where is it? And I got to ask myself that question again, because when we were going over my medical records for my current situation, it had in there the surgery I had to repair a finger, oh man, 30 plus years ago. And I'm trying to think, where's that all been stored all this time that they can just call it on up? And I know that part of Obamacare was this giant computer bank where all medical records were computerized. But this idea of, you know, having records that go back, I don't know if they've got my tonsillectomy in there or not. Still, it's a little scary that the last 30 years of my medical records are on file somewhere. Okay. Again, in Virginia, this is not the government. There's a woman in Virginia that has claimed that taking Zantac daily for years gave her cancer of the esophagus. And apparently she is just one of over dozens of lawsuits over the carcinogenic chemicals in the heartburn drug. They're not very careful about what they put in these medications. That's unfortunately the problem. And apparently this woman, Deborah Haskins of Ridgeway, is saying that ranitidine's chemical structure is inherently unstable and it can break down during digestion and produce the cancer-causing agent NDMA. And in past studies on animals, NDMA has been linked to several cancers, including those of the colon, rectum, kidneys, liver, and stomach. So she's suing on the grounds that Zantac failed to warn consumers of the risk and committed fraud by doing so, resulting in her injuries. So another lawsuit out there. Okay, brief little note about the coronavirus, Wuhan virus, whatever you want to call it. CDC is now saying Americans shouldn't wear face masks to prevent coronavirus because most people don't use them correctly anyway. Now, there was that other report saying that you had to have face masks that covered the eyes because the virus could enter through the eyes. And again, there is just so much disinformation, misinformation going on about this, about how horrible it is. China is lying to cover up the true scale of the disaster. And maybe they are. Maybe they are. I keep thinking back to the war in Vietnam, where Americans were not told how many we had lost in Vietnam until after the war was over. Big, deep, dark secret. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has reported an outbreak of bird flu. Oh man, the viruses are just having a field day here. Okay, we are going to take a break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here, and we're going to go to the phones to David in San Francisco. Aloha, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Yeah, I hear you're way east of Aloha, but let's carry it on into the Midwest. Hey, what cracks me up about the vote on the impeachment, Republicans pretend that they know how to run an economy. Well, if you're a small business owner, you want to be checking the books once in a while, right? And so if your president is mismanaging it was just short of $400 million. This is what for the bazookas for the soldiers of the Ukraine, they were up to 13,000 recently dead Ukrainians because they didn't have these bazookas. And we finally got them budgeted back in February or something like that. It got authorized in like May, and then Trump didn't spend the money till September. So where did that $400 million go for nearly 6 months? And the idea that these guys are pretending that they don't need to check the books. So they know how to run a business. They are such lying phonies. And for them to vote against looking at the books.
Well, I absolutely agree the books should be looked at, but you have to remember these aren't businessmen, they're politicians. They may have been businessmen in the past.
Well, they pretend to be patriots.
Well,
they want to run government like a business.
Everything.
Well, most of them got elected on the idea they're going to run government like a business. And business means you're checking the books. And these guys don't want to check the books. The whole idea of having witnesses, evidence, mismanagement, where was that $389 million? And it was like missing for 2.5 months. I personally think they were doing the old derivative scam where they were doing the overnight lending. And $400 million for 2.5 months, you'd get plenty of a little pile, and you'd be able to puff up your own. Check the books, man. For the Republican Party I think Mitt Romney voted to check the books. Was there any other Republican that voted to check the books?
Well, I'm not sure, but I mean, in terms of not wanting to check the books, it's hardly confined to the Republicans. I mean, look at how much.
Well, no, this was the vote that just happened. Don't talk about Jimmy then and Johnny Dillon. We're talking about the vote that just happened. They voted not to check the books. I mean, a patriot, a good accountant, a businessman would say check the books. These guys voted no. And I've been saying for years, Trump is organized crime. You don't even pretend. It's funny, at the end of the night, I was watching C-SPAN, so you see him cutting through the crowd. And there was a cameraman, 2 feet away from him or whatever. He tries to weasel up to Roberts, man. It was funny because one of the Secret Service guys saw that he was going to blow the case if he shook hands with Roberts. And he, sure enough, did. You see him do it. Trump's hand is out, and bam, all of a sudden Secret Service man pushes him on. Onward, Mr. President. He was about to shake hands with Roberts. So then he weasels his way over to Mitch McConnell, and he's whispering in his ear and patting on the back and all this sort of shit. And so he, the fix is in. The guy's organized crime. He's got all these guys with photographs by Epstein.
Well, again, as I was trying to say before you cut me off here, hiding the books is hardly unique to the Republican Party. I mean, look how protective they are of the books over at the Clinton Foundation. Still can't get in there.
Yeah, I think they did all those inquiries, and they all found her innocent, right? I mean, she's still got her nonprofit status, right?
It should have been.
I mean,
pulled
that's how you get the credit rating. And again, it's the vote that just happened, not Hillary.
David, I understand that you're a Democrat here, but the reality
is... No, I'm a Green Party. And I'm also, as my great-great-great-grandfather signed the Declaration of Independence. I do not tolerate people that don't want to check the books. This is what a government taxation with representation is all about, checking the books. And this guy's getting away with it. He's got half the Senate, more than half the Senate, so coward that they will not check the books. That was what the vote was about. It wasn't about party. It was about checking the books. And Republicans pretend to run government like a business, but they don't want to check the books. It's organized crime.
How did the Democrats... David... How did the Democrats vote on this bill?
Check the books.
Yes. How did the Democrats vote on this bill?
Well, was there one Democrat that voted to not check the books? I don't know if there was any switchover. I thought there was one Democrat that jumped, but for the most part, they voted to check the books. Because that's what this is all about. Missing $400 million. Where was it for 2.5 months? How many Ukrainians died is not being talked about. The Republicans pretend to be afraid to death of Moscow.
David,
they were 100 miles from Moscow, and they pulled the bullets.
David, we got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha to you, Michael. Good day to you. Yeah, Michael, that last caller, Dave, whatever, that was kind of buffoonery. Watching that State of the Union, let me get back to this guy, Dave. Hey, I don't care about the money, Dave. Let's look at the immigration problem. Did you see the guy that Trump marched out there, the brother the man whose brother got murdered at a gas station by an illegal alien? If one American gets murdered by an illegal alien, Michael, it's one too many. One American dies at the hands of an illegal alien, one too many. Now, you hear this idiot talking about money. Listen, we've been invaded. California's got 8 million illegals in there, Mr. Dave. Now, Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime to expose this invasion. Has he done anything about it? I don't know. But at least he's talking about it. At least you're seeing it. The American public saw it all over the networks, what is going on. Donald Trump gave you figures. 45,000 terrible crimes committed, 2,000 murders by an illegal aliens in this country last year. 2,000. Now, you tell me that's not a war? You tell me that is not a war that's happening in our country with immigration? These people are not even coming here to learn the language, let alone to learn the culture, okay? They could care less. They know there's freebies here. This is a magnet for free. The guy keeps talking about, the last caller, about money. How much money is American taxpayers paying for all these illegals, Michael? How much money is going out of this country never to come back every year? What's the number? You have any idea?
It's in the millions.
It's in the billions. It's in the multiple billions of dollars, not millions. It's in the billions. I saw it on One American News. They were talking about it. Over $22 billion left this country last year, never to come back. And I'll tell you what Donald Trump did do, that last caller, so you can understand it, and all your other callers are going to call in. What Trump did do last night is he shot out a senator who's got a bill right now for American citizens of sanctuary cities, Tom Tillis. Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina has got a bill, and I tell you what, every one of your callers and me and everybody should be calling Washington demanding that Tillis's bill be on Trump's desk in the next 30 days. Signed. You hurt an American, you, the cities, are going to be responsible with the lawsuits for the multiple billions of dollars that you're going to be paying out, like Kate Steinle, Molly Tibbetts. Go on and on and on. The gentleman yesterday had his brother got murdered. He should be able to sue the city where that happened for hundreds of millions of dollars. That's what Tillis's bill is going to be about. And that last caller, why doesn't he talk? If he's so concerned about money, why doesn't he talk about his senator to start getting these bills for these sanctuary cities where American citizens are getting murdered every day? Drunk driving, rapes, robberies. Did you see the 90s? Did you see it? Did you ever hear a president in your lifetime, Michael? In your lifetime, have you ever seen a president on a national audience as a State of the Union talk about a 92-year-old woman in New York get murdered and raped and murdered? Do you think the Bushes would ever talk about that? Do you think Slama, Hussein Sortero, Barry Sortero would ever talk about that? A 92-year-old woman murdered by an illegal alien in New York? Donald Trump did it. And the media, all they're talking about is how Nancy Pelosi tore up the Constitution. Yeah, she's a pig. But you know what? They're not talking about she's allowed her state to be invaded with 8 million illegals. She should be in handcuffs right now. Matter of fact, I'd go arrest her if they gave me what is it called? The citizen's right? You have, as a citizen to arrest somebody?
Yes.
You call that? You have the right to arrest somebody for breaking the law. Well, somebody should arrest Pelosi for allowing that. Citizen's arrest, that's what it's called. Now, I saw Donald Trump.
Well, okay, hang on, Tom. What crime would you charge her with? Because you can't arrest somebody just because you don't like them.
I would charge her for allowing the state of California to have 8 million illegals, giving them sanctuary. They have poop control in San Francisco, homeless needles everywhere. But in the meantime, what are these 8 million people living in? Section 8 housing? That's what I would arrest her for.
Tom?
Why are you allowing homeless to be homeless when you got illegals in there living better than them?
Tom,
yeah, go ahead.
Tom, put down the coffee for a minute here.
No coffee. I had green tea. Green tea. No coffee.
Okay.
Green tea.
Well, okay.
The ginseng and honey.
Take a few deep breaths here. Oh, the ginseng. That's what's doing it. Anyway, let me ask you a question. And understand, I'm not defending Pelosi, but I want you to understand that when you talk about arresting people, you have to play by the same rules as the police do. What law has Pelosi broken?
Okay, well, I'll ask you this. You had the mayor in Oakland allowing people to know that ICE was coming to arrest them, the illegals. Do you think she should be arrested? Pelosi's probably in on it. The mayor of Oakland, California, the woman in Oakland, she told the illegals that the ICE agents were coming to arrest them to round them up. You think she should have got off scot-free, Michael?
No, she shouldn't have. She should have been arrested under Title VIII.
Okay, that is what Nancy Pelosi should be arrested for. You just said it, Title VIII. Nancy Pelosi, Feinstein, and all of them should be arrested for Title VIII. And I really want to know the story about Feinstein and that Chinese agent she had worked for 30 years in her office, 25 years. I'd like to know about that. The media covers all that up. But getting back to Trump's speech last night, the State of the Union, Michael, I know I'm getting a little excited. I'm sorry about that. I apologize, but I can't help it. When I hear idiots call and they talk about this, Donald Trump is the first president in our lifetime that's saying, hey, we're going to build a wall. We've got an invasion. We got a virus coming in from China. We got, like I told you the other day, your show, over 480 Chinese got arrested at the border. Okay, and they keep pouring in. You got these anchor babies being born, flown in here. The women are dropping babies, and all of a sudden they're American citizens. It's just crazy. It's got to be dealt with. Tom Tillis has got a bill right now for sanctuary cities. There's a crime committed against an American citizen in a sanctuary city. The city of that state is going to be sued for millions of dollars. That's why Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida, he don't want nothing to do with that. There's no sanctuaries in the state of Florida. You're an illegal. You're going to get rounded up and you're caught and they're going to ship you right in the middle of Mexico. That's what's got to be done right now. This can't be patty cake anymore.
I agree.
You come to this country, you come here legally, or you get out. And you come here to this country, you learn the language, you respect this language in this country. We are an English-speaking country. We don't have 100 million Germans going around speaking Achtung or sprechen in Deutschland. No, this is an American country. You come here, you should be having one common language. The Hispanics going to come in here. They're having all these TV stations, networks, radios. No other culture is allowed to do that. You don't see 25 Polish stations or Danish stations or Italian stations.
Tom, I have to leap in here. If there are enough people of a specific ethnic group in a market, yes, there will be radio and TV stations to serve them. And coming from Hawaii, we have radio stations that broadcast in Japanese, TV stations that broadcast in Japanese. We have radio stations that broadcast in Korean, Tagalog, and the various other Pacifica languages. So it's not just the Hispanics. What the problem is, the Hispanics represent a sizable enough market where people see that a radio station or TV station aimed at the Hispanic market will in fact pencil out.
Michael, you know what? Okay, I'm going to agree with you on that. But listen here. It's wrong. Because, Michael, let me tell you something. If 100 million Germans right now in German blood in them start speaking German, that would never be allowed in Congress. They would never allow 100 million people to start speaking German because they call them a bunch of Nazis or whatever. They would never allow that. Every other group could come here, but if Germans can't speak their language, the Italians can't speak Italian. I don't see 25 radio stations in Italian. And there's a lot of Italian Americans in this country. Millions. Okay? And they don't have Italian newspapers all over in all those big cities and speaking Italian all over the place. Am I lying, Michael? You come to this country, you've got to learn the common language, and you become an American. That's what it's all about. The American flag, the flag of the United States was presented as an American flag, English speaking. The Congress and the Senate, the House, they don't conduct their business in any other language but English, Michael, do they? Do they?
Let's see. Hang on
I don't
a
believe
second.
so.
I'm taking a look right now. Well, I'm looking at the radio stations that broadcast in Italian. There's one in Montreal. There's one in, obviously, a lot of them in Italy. There's one in Australia.
I'm talking about America, Michael. I'm talking about the United States of America. I'm not talking about those.
I'm looking down the list. I'm looking down the list. Okay, the Virgin Islands, there's an Italian radio station. So.
Yes, I understand that.
Well,
I'm talking about the United States of America.
Okay,
Michael, I didn't call about to talk about language.
Hey, Tom. Okay, you're letting your excitement get carried away here again. The point I'm making is that there are Italian broadcasting stations in countries outside of Italy, and there could very easily be one here in the United States of America. We don't know for sure one way or the other because the list was really too long to go through while we were all, sitting here waiting. But, this idea that only the Hispanics are allowed to have their separate language stations, that is simply not true.
Well, Michael, let me ask you a question. I'd like to ask your audience this. Do you think that Tom Tillis' bill is going to pass in the Senate, in the House?
I really don't know. I'd like to see it pass there because I'd like to see these sanctuary cities start to feel the impact of their policies.
Absolutely. And what's going to happen here, Trump's going to get another 4 years. Like I told you the other day, he's going to get 2 or 3 more Supreme Court justices. I'm telling you right now. And then when this happens, it's going to shake the core of this nation because this nation is going to go back to what it was supposed to be as the greatest nation on earth. Not where it's discombobulation when you're having women having abortion at 9 months, Michael. Come on, man. These Democrats have gone insane. They have gone insane what they're trying to put over on the American public. Look what's going on in Iowa right now, Michael. That's a disgrace. And now all these liberal networks are saying, oh, there's too many white people in Iowa. It's a bunch of white people that can't get it together. Like they're trying to make the Caucasians look like they're stupid or something. What's going on? You better the next time they're going to have it where it's more diversified. Like Nevada's going to be the next state that you're going to have for to start off the Democratic nominating process. I mean, what kind of? And then you got this Doomberg. Got this Michael Doomberg spending hundreds of millions of dollars right now, and the guy's probably thinking he might steal the nomination from Bernie. I mean, this is great. I got to tell you, it is really turning out to be great. I love it. Tell you the truth. It's insane.
All right,
it's insane, Michael.
Tom, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go here, and we're going to switch over to Keith Rogers. Aloha, Keith. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hello, Mike. Hope you're feeling good there. Hey, Mike, I respect everyone's First Amendment right as well as their Article 19 ability to be able to talk about their own interest and stuff. But you know what I've noticed in life here is like what's going on in this country. From the Bush era, senior, of the CIA's involvement throughout Central and South America, the drug cartels, the bilking of the savings and loans, which millions of Americans had to bail out, the other bailouts of Citibank and the other ones, the banks that have laundered hundreds of billions of dollars in cartel monies, to the very existence knowing that what the United States has done that we Americans sit here as rubberneckers or gawkers and only stand in horror when we see someone jump our back fence to what the CIA has done in other countries, killing countless millions of people, destroying their wages, labor, unions, shooting priests, bishops, nuns. And it's only when Americans see this come to their own doorstep that they're in total shock. Like, how could it happen to us? The CIA calls that blowback. All these wars waged in the Middle East, the UN specifically talks about forced migration. And where does it say it comes from? From these war areas. These wars are what? All based on total lies. And Americans don't really give a damn because the minerals and stuff are extracted for their cell phones, their tablets, the copper for their homes. I mean, it's a massive sales project. And Americans don't care. They are gawkers only to the extent of when someone gets shot here or stabbed here. What about those down in Central America that were pillaged by those CIA death squads or security forces? The same with ISIS or Al-Qaeda, all supported by the United States. And we're supposed to be at horror to watch an Arab Muslim get their head chopped off by a CIA, Congress-paid terrorizing group whose vehicles were bought through the State Department, you know. But Americans can't see that. They're fed this constant BS to keep this constant hype. There's two articles, The Guardian and New York Times talks about the FBI's behind all domestic terrorism. Why? It's to keep the American public on board that the Muslims are the ones that have to be taken care of, radical Islam. You know, when you talk about radicals, like that video I wanted you to play last week of Wesley Clark, who admitted in 2002 that they were going to attack 7 countries in 5 years. And then in 2015, he came out and says, if you're not on board with this war agenda, you should be locked up in internment camps. You're radicalized. These people are fighting for their freedoms, their independence in those countries, just like Ho Chi Minh did in Vietnam when he declared independence. All those Latin American countries like Venezuela, when they started paying off the debt of Argentina, and Venezuela was attacked with massive sanctions for 3 administrations, and Americans can point to, oh, look at that socialism down there. It's not working. But the point was it was the sanctions that caused that problem to where they're eating their pets and stuff. It's all caused from a government that's gone rogue. So Americans should be thankful that we have representative government. If you don't like what's going on in this country, look at your government because it represents we the people. They want their freedoms to have sex and all this stuff like that, regardless whether it's LGBTQ, whatever like that, you know. They're getting their form of government. They should be happy.
Yes, you raised some very, very good points there. And it's appearing that the U.S. has been playing this game far longer than any of us imagined. It's just we didn't see it in the years before the internet and the independent media came along. Because certainly, you know, what we got from the TV news was, you know, we're bringing them freedom, we're bringing them democracy, we're saving those people from an evil tyrant and the usual stuff. That doesn't work any longer, and I think most Americans understand these wars are all about conquering other countries, about imposing private central banking on them, imposing a puppet ruler on them, and so forth and so on. Anyway, listen, Keith.
Well, just one final thought with your break here, Mike. I just want to say one thing.
Stay on the line,
you know, if they would spit... Okay.
Stay on the line. I'm going to bring you back after the commercials. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're still talking with Keith Rogers. And Keith, you had one more point you wanted to make.
Yeah, well, actually, there's 2. But, you know, when you think of billions of dollars per border wall, I was thinking more about how about sending those billions to restore those economies and stuff that those U.S. corporations have trashed through United Fruit and stuff all down through Central America. I sent you an email earlier, which was a confirmation, basically more, of the 2 articles that one appeared in the Daily Pennsylvania, where it says Palmer, Trump, Reagan named in the scheme to divert Wharton funds to Contras. And then the Bernanke trial, where in the footnote of that, it says the case had almost everything except Donald Trump. And this is, of course, where the massive arms flow, and Trump's been in this for a long time. Adam Khashoggi, he's the one that Trump bought the yacht for. He was the biggest arms dealer through the from the Contras into Iraq to attack Iran. I mean, it's like a vendetta that these guys got against Iran. But people don't research history. They sit there and they watch the news all the time, which the news is a CIA front. La Prensa and all these radio stations throughout Central America, Voice of America and stuff, they broadcast in English. They also broadcast in other languages. And this is how they get people on board with what's going on with what they call U.S. policy. But this is what's been going on for years, and it's only now, as you mentioned, with the Internet, that people have access to this stuff, that few people want to read up on it because they want to sit there and say, our country wouldn't do that. A country of immigrants that came from Europe that killed millions of Americans, started the Mexican-American Wars, took Texas to California, and it's only now that someone else is coming back in our country, let that, it was stolen, but it's our country now. People don't realize what's going on. We live in a global society nowadays, and sadly, whether it's socialism or capitalism or like that, it's the big guys up on top that are making the money, not us down on the bottom, and that's why they don't care. And if a politician doesn't go along with what these corporations want, they simply say, well, we're going to pull 45,000 jobs from your state. That's how they control these politicians, and that's why you have wars.
Oh, yeah. And they hand out, these military contracts are parceled out to as many states as possible to get those politicians on board with the war agenda. And you build up enough weapons, you have to have a war to use up those weapons so you can go back and say, we got to build something new. And I've been seeing a lot of articles all over the corporate media about how we have to have a new generation of high-speed missiles and a new generation of ships and submarines to counter all these advances being made by these other countries. But it's a racket. Like so many other things in our country, it's just another racket to extract wealth from the American people and convince the American people that this is a good thing.
It's like on a reservation here in Montana. I watch the Indians here. They celebrate Independence Day, and I go, for God's sakes, you live on a reservation. How are you independent? Anyway, thanks, Mike. Have a good evening.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to take a break for station identification. We got another caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're getting updated numbers from Iowa with 86% of the counties reporting. Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders are still neck and neck with 11 delegates each. Elizabeth Warren has 5. Joe Biden, 0. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to Francis in North Carolina. Aloha, Francis. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, young'un. Hey, kiddo. Just a few quick points for you. One, I have to applaud Justin that was on much earlier in the show because he made a lot of very valid points that was like, wow, okay. That was very poignant. Two, as far as the officer is concerned that went and made the arrest and all that because he thought that bird poop was cocaine. Maybe it was because he was hallucinating because of the cocaine he already had in the system to start with.
Good theory. Good theory. I like that one.
Well, I mean, how would someone take bird poop as being that unless they were already on it and thinking that, oh, wow, I got some right here. Okay, never mind. Oh, gross thought. But anyway, as far as the ethnicity goes and choice of language and whatever have you is concerned, I actually have to feel for Tom, but I hope at least he has never been to Manhattan in New York City because you're going to come across people of hundreds of different ethnic backgrounds and so many different languages. It is not even silly. It is a literal melting pot all by itself as far as Manhattan is concerned. So, and if you're coming from like a rural area to country or whatever and you go there, you're in for a major culture shock as far as how people behave, how they dress, and so forth, ad nauseum. as per their culture. So, regardless of what people think as being the main language of the U.S. concern, and, you know, yada, 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 guess what? If that was the case, then why do we have the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor? Shouldn't it be the symbology for religion or some language or whatever, and not the Statue of Liberty? I think there's a reason why it is the Statue of Liberty there. That was actually a gift from France to start with, to acknowledge the melting pot that the U.S. is. And if people have an issue with that, guess what? I never stop reading about history and all that, and what has happened in human history here in the U.S. But there's a lot of things I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me! Wake up, kiddo, and so forth. So, but as far as it was Frank, it was Keith that was just on. I had to applaud him as well, because he did bring to the forefront a lot of things that have occurred over the past decade, if not 2 decades or more, from the various administrations at nauseam, that apparently I do not hear many people talking about, for that matter. I do not. For example, the World Trade Center, when that went down, that's almost becoming, I don't even think my nieces even know what the World Trade Center is or was before it was ever brought down, because it was brought down before they were ever born. So, so much for that thought. So anyway, have a great week. Remember to breathe and play hard.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to let you go here. All righty. So, what a mess they've had over there in Iowa. And again, while I don't agree with the New York Times attempting to blame Donald Trump for Iowa, in a roundabout way, he has to share the responsibility, because he went into office promising to overhaul our election system. And yes, he met a lot of resistance from the state election commissions, but he is the president, and the problem has not been fixed. Anyway, so turning to the world of computers, very kind of an interesting story. I think this Internet of Things has gone way too far. And now we're down to what are called the smart light bulbs. And Philips has one out called the Hue, which under control of your central system can be changed in color. It can do white, it can do blue, it can do red, it can do green, or any combination thereof. And I guess with the appropriate software, you could turn your home into a disco with the lights flashing different colors. But apparently, even these smart bulbs are open to being hacked and allowing intruders to gain entry to your network. And so I really think the risks outweigh the benefits. And I know people like to have these things and they like to point to them and brag and say, I have the smart light bulbs and I have this and I have that. Now, don't get me wrong. I think LED bulbs in general are a good thing because they do last so long. But having it controlled by the computer, I mean, most of the exercise I get is getting up and going over to turn the lights off and on. Amazing here. All righty, over in Fukushima, as you know, that panel has recommended simply dumping the radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean. We had that interesting call the other day from a geological expert saying that maybe they should have drilled disposal wells and pumped this stuff down deep in the ground. Now it's too late. They waited too long, and they probably don't want to spend the money to do that anyway. So they're just going to dump it in the ocean. Meanwhile, over at Chernobyl, they have found this new species of fungi that has evolved that is apparently eating the radiation. Now, I think what they mean by that is it's eating the radioactive isotopes, and that's not an unknown phenomenon, because it's known that various plant species will absorb radioactive particles, and it's called bioaccumulation. And in fact, planting a lot of greenery in a cleanup area is a standard practice for a radiation spill. And the plants will pull the radioactive materials out of the soil and incorporate them into their leaves and stems. Then they're taken up and taken away and buried along with the other radioactive debris. Now, this is the reason why cigarettes cause cancer. It's not the tobacco. When the tobacco industry said tobacco does not cause cancer, they were more or less correct. The problem is the fertilizer, because the tobacco companies, the large commercial tobacco companies, use this very inexpensive mined mineral fertilizer that contains polonium-210. And the polonium gets sucked up into the tobacco plants and then becomes part of the manufacture of the cigarettes. And that is the reason that they cause cancer. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, Mike, I wanted to talk about this whole Iowa election snafu, as they're calling it. And it's absolutely ridiculous the way people act like this was just some kind of a snafu, some kind of an error in the account, in the software. I mean, this was out and out robbery of the leftist populist, Bernie Sanders, by the establishment. And I mean, the way they painted this like, oh, it's just accidental, is comical. I mean, the whole thing they saw. I mean, the Iowa newspaper spiked the poll because it showed that Bernie Sanders was going to win. Right, and the first time they've ever done that. Yep. Right, they do that, and then all of a sudden, oh, the new app that all Hillary's people were involved in implementing, and they wouldn't allow the Department of Homeland Security to look at it, to test it, which was what the federal government wanted to do. But of course, the Iowa caucus is private; it's Democratic Party, so they're allowed to allow people like the Clintons to hack it if they want that to happen. So, and then the night of the so-called snafu, of course, all the momentum's on Sanders, you know, and you steal away his victory speech. You show that, oh, Joe Biden, the establishment's candidate so far, it seems, is, you know, you hide the fact that he's in fourth or even fifth place. I mean, and the way the media, the talking heads, and everybody just buys this charade lie like this is a snafu is just comical. I mean, you know, I got a sister who's a big Bernie fan, and she's never been into like my conspiracy theories, you know, with 9/11 and this and that. But even she's intellectually honest enough to say, I guess it might be because it's her candidate, that it was a complete robbery, and it's just funny how, you know, even Fox News, who's supposed to be like from the right and should be calling them on it, they go along with this, oh, an innocent snafu story. I mean, it is so ridiculous. It's almost sickening. I mean, give us a break. But I mean, you know, it goes on. You know, here they go moving on. And I'll tell you the truth, though, Bernie Sanders kind of deserves it. You know, it's kind of like what I used to say about Ron Paul. You know, you got to stand up and you got to scream bloody murder and stomp out and do what you got to do. If you just keep bending over for these people, you're just going to don't complain to me, you know? And that's what I like about Trump, is that he's a fighter. And Bernie Sanders has got to take a page from Donald Trump's book right now and start becoming mean and ornery and fighting and hitting them back below the belt, because that's what they're going to do to you, Bernie, and all your supporters. They're going to do Ron Paul #2 or Bernie #2, actually. And, you know, it's almost like it's unbelievable. It's so in your face, it's unbelievable. But, you know, sometimes you watch a mark and the mark just keeps getting burned. And they're arrogant, I guess, and they're just going to keep getting burned. And you just get to the point where you say, well, you know, that's what happens to Marx. And it looks like Bernie Sanders, besides being a Marxist, is a mark, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I get that. Well, something happened in Iowa, and I think that app needs to be looked at. And of course, I can understand the Democratic Party in Iowa is saying, well, it was just a goof. Did you notice the lengths they went to say it was not a hack, it was not an intrusion? They don't know, because they have not been able to look at the source code for that app. They're saying that the data collected at the caucuses was accurate, but it was a reporting problem, which sounds to me like somewhere along the line, the data was being filtered to conceal votes for, well, for example, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how, like, all these, like, accidental snafus always seem to work in the favor of the establishment candidates, you know? All the snafus always work against the populist candidates. All the snafus always seem to, like, work against people that I'm always for, it seems, because I'm very against the institutionalized corruption of the establishment. And, you know, so this is just a prime example of it. I mean, it's hard to, like, and it's so interesting how gullible the media is in that they just buy this story like, oh, just another snafu that benefits the establishment and works to the disadvantage of the populist leftist candidate. And there'll be another one like, oh, in New Hampshire, you know, there was an avalanche that took out the reporting system, and we won't be able to give you the results for another 2 weeks. And just another snafu that worked for the benefit of the establishment and against the leftist populist. And if it was the Republicans, it would be a snafu that worked against the right-wing populist. So, you know, it's gotten to the point where it's reducto de absurdum or whatever, however that goes. It's so ridiculous, it's funny on its face. But one other quick thing I wanted to talk about Trump, and just that I look at the parallels with Trump and Caesar, in that Caesar really was kind of forced to become a dictator because, you know, while he was off in Spain and Gaul, you know, the Republican Senate or his enemies in the Senate at the time, which was a republic, Rome was a republic, they basically made it impossible for him to come back without surrendering his armies and basically throwing himself at the goodwill of the senators who were out to get him. And I see the same thing with Trump in that if he doesn't destroy his enemies now, well, now that he's been vindicated and acquitted, and he's got the tools to do it with all the D classes and Seth Rich and Epstein's videos and you know, all the corruption at the FBI. If he doesn't destroy these people, then he's going to be like what would happen to Caesar if he just laid down and came back in. You know, well, they ended up getting Caesar sooner or later anyway, but he did scatter his enemies and destroy them. And that's what Trump really has to do now. Is I'm not saying he has to become a dictator. I'm saying that he has to take off the gloves and become vicious. Or he's going to either be dead or a dictator. And I'd rather not see either of those two things. I don't want to see him dead, and I don't want to see him be a dictator. I want to see him destroy his enemies so that we can become a constitutional republic like we're supposed to be. But if he allows this to go unchallenged, what they've done to him, then he's going to put this country on a path to either dictatorship, or in particular, him and his family will be destroyed forever. I mean, that's going to happen if he doesn't win. And I think that's where we're at. And whenever I get another letter asking me for money, I write back, you know, where are the indictments, you know? Well, and it's either, you know, you saw it last night in this State of the Union. There's Pelosi tearing up the State of the Union speech. I mean, there was almost like it was a witchcraft thing right there in front of the whole country. And sooner or later, Trump, you know, these people you're going to try to reason with, Mr. Trump, you know, and as a supporter of Trump who realizes that if Trump's enemies ever get in power in this country again, that they're going to target me. They've already said that. They're going to target his supporters. You know, already will be called white nationalists. And, you know, as the FBI guy today was talking about, being a white nationalist was right on the list of who the FBI is coming after. So, you know, I think that we have a big stake in Mr. Trump succeeding. So, Mr. Trump, you know, you better start fighting these people, like fighting them dirty and arresting them while you have your chance, because you're not going to have that chance for that much longer if you're not careful.
Yeah, he's got to move now. He's got to put on those presidential brass knuckles, and he's got the opportunity. He's got the American people on his side. Now's the time to be presidential, and that means standing above the crowd and doing what needs to be done. And unfortunately, I'm not hopeful that Trump will do that. I'm expecting him to kind of just sort of mellow down, as it were, and that we're not like Justin. I don't think anything's going to get done here. I still think we're going to have to go through the problem of seeing this entire system collapse and rebuild it from scratch.
Well, that's going to mean a lot of pain and suffering for a lot of people, and I agree that appears to be the way it's going.
I wish there was a way that we could avoid it, but unfortunately, it does seem headed that way. This government will never reform itself because the current system works for them. For people who are on the inside, for the elites, the system is working just fine. The money and the power is just flowing toward them, and all they have to do is yak at a microphone to keep it going.
Hey, what do you think, Mike? You think they got pictures of Romney with like little kids or something? I mean, there's something going on. I think they obviously had something on Romney to get him to to vote for that one article today. I just find it hard to believe that he would do that, or they must have him on something, the establishment, the CIA or somebody, because. It just makes no sense. He comes from Utah. They love Trump in Utah. I mean, it's 80% support in Utah for Trump, and
yes.
It's just, they must have, him and Roberts, you can almost see these guys their strings are being yanked on them. And, Romney, what do you expect? Just think this guy was the Republican candidate for president in 2012. I mean, and look at what a rat-fink rhino he is, It just, I didn't vote for him. I wrote in Ron Paul's name. There were a lot of people that said, "Oh, vote for Romney." I said, "I never did." They got all mad at me about it, and now they're all Trump supporters, the same people, and now I'm sure they're saying they're regretting voting for him back then. But it really is a disgrace to. He's a disgrace. That's all I can really say. I mean, what a disgrace.
All right. Well, listen, Joe, it's time for another commercial break. So thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are loading up. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And Mitt Romney is actually on the air right now on CNN reading a statement trying to explain why he voted to convict Donald Trump. So apparently that's the big news story. And it may have been that somebody said to Romney, you got to vote to convict so it doesn't look like it's a totally partisan exercise, even though everybody knows that's exactly what was going on. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to James in Tokyo. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hey, Mike. I just listened to you today, like sleeping and not sleeping, and yeah, you've been away for a while. I mean, is it okay for you to tell what the hell was wrong with you and that you've been away for a while? I mean, I've seen for a while that you kind of deteriorated, and I was very concerned, and I love you a lot. And I don't know if you said it before or because I'm just listening right now. And if you can tell your audience, like, what the heck was wrong with you, and if you're going to get better, I'd appreciate it. Like, I don't have to worry every day.
Well, there is reason to worry, but not much. And what it is it's been determined that I've got an autoimmune neurological condition where my immune system was attacking my muscles and my nerves. And yeah, I was deteriorating a lot, even back on Oahu, because I didn't realize what was going on. But now the doctors have identified it. I'm being treated for it, and I'm definitely starting to recover. But it's probably going to be about a year before I'm back to normal.
Hey, Mike, I don't like to talk about my own personal stuff, but I had the same thing a couple of years ago, like an autoimmune thing. And like, my hair started falling out, and I felt sick, and I felt dizzy. And it was all because of a bad tooth. And like, I had this tooth pulled, but once I had this dentist, like, get back in that area, like in my face and, whatever, yeah, I felt better. So maybe something you could check out, and hope you get a lot better, brother.
Well, I hope so too. But I'll run that past my doctor. I this last year kind of took its toll on me. But I am in treatment. I am in physical therapy, and I am getting better. So we'll just leave it at that. I don't like to talk about my personal stuff any more than you do. Anyway, you had some comments about Iowa?
Yeah, Iowa. Yeah. Well, I get a couple comments, but yeah, I think like Iowa is like a fraud, and they don't give any of the votes. They're like putting Mayor Pete, ahead of Bernie. Everybody. I think all the Dems would love to see Bernie, and they all support him. And they're going to screw this guy out of the whole same thing again. What do you think, Mike?
I think, yeah, absolutely. Again, he's definitely on the outs. They did it to him in 2016. I admire his courage coming back here in 2020 and trying again. And I think it surprised a lot of people that Buttigieg did as well as he did. But again, whether that's the result of a genuine feeling of support among the Iowans or if it's the result of this nefarious app, we're not really sure. Or something else is going on. Frankly, it surprised the heck out of me that he did that well. I just saw a blurb on, I think it was Fox News, because I jump around a lot on this TV set, where it looked like Bernie Sanders had actually pulled slightly ahead in the popular vote. But they still have 11 delegates each. The real story coming out of Iowa, though, of course, is Joe Biden just absolutely cratered.
Well, how could you not expect Biden to crater when he's like, I like kids in my lap, I like when the hair on my legs, and he's like kissing everybody, and then the whole sham of the whole Trump impeachment, where they're like projecting on Trump, for Biden's corruption. It's like totally sick. I mean, and what's even sicker is I've lost like 3 friends who are like, "Oh, James, you're a Russian asset. You're this and you're that." And I'm like, "Man, what the hell?" Oh, and I'm a racist, yeah, too. Yeah, my kids are half Japanese. My best friend's black, but I'm a racist also. And it's just amazing how sick these people have become, Mike. And I don't know. Yes, anyway, that's all I got to say. Except I hope you get a lot better, my brother, and you find out what the hell is wrong, and give my best to that lovely heart playing angel Claire. You take care, Mike. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to let you go, and it's time for us to take another commercial break. So we'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Kelly in Austin. Aloha, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi there, Mike. I hope I didn't misunderstand something I heard earlier today. Somebody said that what happened in Iowa might have been attributable or traceable to Trump or blamed on Trump because he promised to reform the election system but hadn't. The issue here is that what happened in Iowa had nothing to do with what Trump could have or could not have done, because that was all run by the respective political parties. The Republicans had no problem reporting their results, but the Democrats certainly did. And so this was entirely a Democrat-inspired fiasco. They had nobody to blame but themselves to blame for what happened. But I smell a rat in that whole thing. I like you. I think that some people are panicking because Bernie Sanders is surging in recognition, and they're trying to find some way to deny him the nomination again. And I think that what happened in Iowa is a direct result of that. It goes to show you how corrupt politics. Yeah.
No, I think that Iowa was set up to be rigged against Bernie Sanders, and they botched it, and it made it so obvious that somebody said, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And they started, and, apparently Iowa did install enough cross-checks to to be able to go back and say, all right, this is what we really voted for. But again, the big surprise is Buttigieg, coming from behind like that, and Joe Biden just absolutely zero. He's basically barely above the viable threshold.
I have to laugh about that. Hey, one other thing unrelated to that I wanted to mention. You mentioned the polonium-210. Yes. Polonium-210 is a deadly isotope of it's out of the uranium, the U-234 series, and it's probably derived from the phosphate fertilizers that they use on the plants. It leaches out and into the soil, and it's picked up by the plants. Over decades of smoking, enough of that could probably accumulate in your lungs to cause cancer. Here's how dangerous it is. Do you remember there was a Russian defective? His name was Victor Litvinenko, who a few years ago died of plutonium-210 poisoning, and all it took to make him a walking dead man was a microgram of polonium-210 swished around in a martini glass. When they buried him, they had to bury him in a lead-lined casket, and he died very quickly. And that was polonium-210 extracted in a laboratory, but it's still polonium-210. And so, over a period of time, a smoker is probably going to accumulate enough of that to have a similar effect. It's just a longer-term effect on the human body. But if you take something in concentrated form, such as pure polonium-210, as whoever delivered that dose to Victor Litvinenko delivered, that is a highly toxic radionuclide. And I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to inhale it. I wouldn't want it on my skin. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near it. If I were in a laboratory, I'd have to be covered in a lead-lined suit to handle that. That's a highly toxic material. So
it is.
Anyway, good show again today. I watched the State of the Union address last night, and frankly, my wife and I laughed the whole time because Pelosi just put on a show. She made a clown of herself, and when she tore up the speech, I thought, here you are, Nancy, you're jumping the shark right now for the whole nation to see.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope this is the end of her. I think that a lot of Democrats are going to be angry as hell with what she did.
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay, Mike. Good show again today.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Perfect. There's a bit of a delay. So it's kind of looking like a make-or-brokered convention.
Yes, that's what everybody's saying at this point.
Yeah, due to an app that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are involved in, like with this some kind of company.
Yes.
Yeah.
That started just 5 months ago.
Yeah, it's like, am I the only one that's seeing what's going on here?
No, you're not. A lot of people are.
If Trump gets elected, if Trump gets elected again, it's all over. Like they're going to have to shoot this guy then, right?
Yeah, something like that. But
the
thing about this app is, why would you go to a company that had only been in existence, for 5 months and was unproven, when there are commercially available messaging apps that are encrypted that could do the job just as well, that are just off the shelf, much less expensive, and much more proven? And so I think somebody ought to be looking at the decision-making process whereby this particular app was chosen by the Democrats to do their reporting.
Well, we know the reason why it was chosen, right?
Yes.
It just hasn't been reported on yet. So,
well, I think it's very significant that the Department of Homeland. I think it's very significant that the Department of Homeland Security was not allowed to vet the code.
Of course. Down that hole we go, right, Mike?
Yes, absolutely.
It just keeps getting, it just keeps getting better and better the deeper you go. So term limits is a good way to kind of keep that sort of thing from happening too much, both in your
I'd
country
like to
and
see
mine.
term limits. I really would.
Yeah. So basically, you do, or you know what's even better though too. Like I don't know, maybe I'm stretching this a little too far. Everyone has to do 4 years to the state in their lifetime, and we'll make it up with people we pay to do this sort of thing too. But we don't keep them around too long. We shake it up.
Yes.
I don't think we're mature enough to even think like that. Corruption.
Well, I know that right now the worst influence we're seeing within Congress, especially within the Democrats, are these old fossils who are desperate to hang on to their power and fame, and they don't know when it's time to step down, like Pelosi.
She's almost 80.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. But then again, nepotism and narcissism, I mean, it's too bad, Mike, But
it really
hopefully things are turning around. I can't see Trump not.
I'd like to see it. At this point, well, you have to factor in the election fraud, especially if Hillary does step into the race. There's going to be massive election fraud. There's going to be illegal immigrants voting. I mean, she came very, very close to seizing the White House back in 2016. It's just that so few people really voted for her because they just can't stand her, that we were able to overcome the election fraud. But if she steps back into the race in 2020, she's going to double the effort at fraud. And if Trump is not prepared to deal with that, he's going to lose.
That's the big question right there, Mike. Does he know that this is going to happen, and how is he supposed to stop it?
Sometimes I wonder who he's taking advice from.
Well, like that one caller said about the election in a specific state. Now, it's not a federal jurisdiction to make sure that each state's elections within the districts are legit, is it?
Well, you're technically correct. It's considered a states' right issue that the states can set their own voting role.
Right? It's a union.
I think it's time.
The United States.
But I do think there needs to be an overhaul, and it has to be imposed from above, because these various electoral commissions have been compromised, either intentionally or even unintentionally. I mean, if you remember that last sequence in Hacking Democracy, where they showed how easy it was to rig the electronic voting machines, and the people there in the election commission, some of them were in tears. They truly believed that they had a system that guaranteed fair and honest elections. And it was a shock to them when it was demonstrated that no, there was no such guarantee.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky that way. You have that constitution, right? Up here in Canada, apparently we're going to start hearing only approved speech through the licensing. I wouldn't have known that, Mike, unless I had visited your website, because I hadn't seen it anywhere else. I was shocked.
Well, we're starting to see
that we have right now.
Push. Yeah. No, we're starting to see the same thing here in the United States of America. That the unofficially approved language gets suppressed on the net.
Mike, we can talk about this sort of thing for hours, but it all comes down to one thing. This has been in the works for a very long time. Systematically, the population, very specifically of the West has been dumbed down. A lot in the United States,
they have been.
A lot in Canada, to the point where would you believe that children aren't even taught how to do long division any longer in public school in the country I live in?
Jeez, that's pretty amazing.
Yep, they have no idea, and we're getting to the point now with the 10 and 12-year-olds, they can't look at a clock unless it's digital and tell you what time it is.
Well, I kind of understand that one. I mean, you know, I grew up in the age of the little pointy hands, and I had an original Mickey Mouse watch, which I wish I'd kept because it'd be worth a fortune today. But,
yeah, like pressure gauges. You know, everything's gone digital, right? It's a digital readout.
Yes.
There are no more pressure gauges, no more temperature gauges. I mean, hell, let's just throw out all the empirical data that we've collected on every Sunday throughout history for everything. You know, how far are we going to go with this nonsense?
Well, you know, one of the advantages of a dial is just by looking at the needle, you didn't need to actually read the number off of it. You would know if you were in trouble or not. And sometimes, you know, digital is nice, but there are some times when you just need a simple bar display or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe I should be a little more concerned than I am right now. You know, instead of leaving it to the people that input this data, or maybe you're doing it at the same time, and then someone else is actually looking at what's really going on. Remember, they used to have those graphs, the cyclo something graphs, that would go in a circle, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, for recording instrumentation and such. You remember that, eh? That's awesome.
I remember that.
It's a shame, like a slide rule.
Yes, I'm an old guy.
You know, a good old-fashioned pencil is not at work right now.
Yeah, when I get back to my own studio and I can have the video feed on again, I'll show you my slide rule from my NASA days. And it's definitely a little more hefty than that one that was used on Apollo 13.
I don't even remember how to use it anymore, Mike. And I once knew how to use this actual slide rule. It's not hard to understand.
No, it's
kind
actually a very simple little
a tape measure on steroids.
That's a good way to put it.
Right? Or a framing square, that sort of thing.
It's
all right,
as
Mike.
accurate
I love it that you're
calculator.
back.
All right, well, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go.
You have a good show.
All right, slide rules are not as accurate as calculators, of course, but in an age before you had pocket calculators, they certainly did the job. Okay, we're going to go to Dan in Colorado. Aloha, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm glad that you're back, Mike. I sure missed you. I was worried. I was worried about you. But thanks for, I just want to thank you for all that you do. I'm really impressed with your dedication. And I'm a little upset at that guy that keeps calling in. And I don't know what he's picking at you, teasing with you, for what reason. I mean, I don't understand what you do wrong besides try to help out. What would his motive be to mess with you?
Well, there are various segments of our political spectrum who do not agree with me, who see me as an impediment to their designs, mostly coming from the liberal side. So they want to come in and trash up the show in the hope that they're going to reduce our audience count. It isn't working, of course, but that's apparently the reason for this kind of harassment.
Well, it sure upsets me when he does that, and I wish he'd quit.
Well,
I've been wanting to call you.
It's good that you recognize it. It's good that you recognize it.
Yeah. Well, I want to call you quite often, but I can't seem to get you live. I have to, you know, I can't, you know what I mean? I can't get you live. I get you on YouTube, and it's delayed, but that's all right. So I don't know what the topics are, and then I'm not up to speed on the conversation.
Well, we're talking today about, Trump's acquittal and, Nancy Pelosi's terrible performance at the State of the Union speech last night.
Oh, that irritated me to watch her, just to have her in the background just ruined the whole thing for me. I'll tell you, I hear Dustin talk about Trump and how he doesn't he doesn't have much to add, but he doesn't like Trump, and I don't see where we had any other choice or where we have any other choices now.
No, we really didn't. No, we really don't. Anyway, Dan, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Back with the last segment of our program after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today on this hump day. And apparently, Buttigieg is back in the lead in the popular vote, but just by a narrow margin. They're close enough where Sanders might be able to call for a recount. And of course, Joe Biden barely above the viability threshold of 15% with 0 delegates. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Sam in Los Angeles. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Just wanted to add to what Al was saying about the dumbing down of our children, today. If you have some time, and for the listeners as well, Ellen, the show host, recently did a segment on her show. Ellen's new millennial challenge challenges millennials, and you can go on. It's on YouTube, and you just type in Ellen and millennial, and you'll see the state of our kids' competences these days. It's amazing. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Okay, we're actually under a major storm here in Indiana, which may explain the little whoopsies we had with the internet earlier in the program. Although overall, everybody around here is saying so far it's a much milder winter than they've been having in the area, but we still have February and March to get through before we know what the reality is going to be. Meanwhile, scientists are starting to swing away from this global warming, and they're starting to talk seriously about the grand solar minimum and cooling. And apparently, Valentina Zarkova of Northumbria University is saying that average temperatures could drop by a single degree centigrade in 2020 and last up to a year, which would result in wet and cold summers. So she's saying the solar minimum was the cause for Canada's recent minus 50 degree centigrade temperature. And the article goes on to say that while solar minimums are a natural occurrence in the sun's life cycle every 11 years or so, next year's could be especially chilly as it marks the beginning of a much longer, much bigger drop in energy. Now, here's where things get interesting, because we're all familiar with the 11-year sunspot cycle, the 22-year magnetic cycle. Now it's turning out that there are indications of much longer solar cycles, 60 years, 110, 120, something in there. We don't really know because we've only been able to study the sun scientifically for 100 years. And what it's looking like is that all of these cycles' low points are lining up in the immediate future, and that's why they're calling it the grand solar minimum. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. Okay, there's the music. Time for us to get on out of here. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things. Oh, Steve Elkins is taking the microphone for the next show. So stay tuned for Steve Elkins. And please share RBN with your friends and neighbors. Please share whatreallyhappened.com. Share what you learn here with everybody. Please donate. We need all the help we can get. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.